Is that freight train of 4,000 high school students start to shake up the education system a little bit? I don't know. We'll examine that tonight. Perhaps not. I'm sure the Education Commissioner has all the answers because there are some changes. We talked about that, and she's been kind enough to respond rather quickly to our request to get after this conversation about some of the changes or additions to waivers in that all-important dynamic of the high school test and the requirements for graduation. It is a pleasure to have you aboard. The Dan Yorke State of Mind rolls on for yet another evening, and we've got lots in store. So yes, Commissioner Deb Gist is here. Do not go anywhere. I'd like to shorten my rundown so that I may get to all of the issues educationally, but you know what? I got a lot to say about this one. This is getting a little nutty. And there's a contest, really, to see, remember to tell the truth. Will the real progressive please stand up? I'm dating myself. I didn't watch it on a daily basis. Do you remember To Tell the Truth? That's an old game show. You know how they stood? That's what's going on in the Democratic primary already. Let's move. Yeah, it does. And this is our new theme. As falsely put together as it's an empty theme, but it's a theme nonetheless. All right, let's dig in. Issue number one for our discussion tonight, minimum wage politics. Headline from the Providence Journal. This is online because it happened today at 11 o'clock. Rhode Island gubernatorial candidate Mayor Angel DeVeris calls for increase in the minimum wage. Surprise, surprise, minimum wage politics going on here, right? So amongst the things he had to say about this, a short piece on how it would kind of work. We borrowed this from the WPRO radio newsroom who covered this event today.
No, it's a phase increase, which would be over the course of the next several years, and so that will hopefully get us to a higher level.
Then the higher level is $10.10 per hour. What's the target date? 2018. Phased in over that period of time. That's the federal conversation going on right now, $10.10. And there's a theme that Angel DeVeris brought to this, continued from that audio from the newsroom.
We need to help grow our economy. We need to make sure to help lift families out of poverty. This is not going to be the solution to poverty, but it's certainly a step to having a positive impact on 65,000 people, and on top of that, having a really positive impact on children as well. So that's something I want to do.
Yeah, it is infuriating, this conversation about minimum wage and how it's going to protect children. That we even talk about children in the context of minimum wage earnings is absolutely outrageous. First of all, most of the data shows time and time again that the majority of minimum wage earners are young people. That's number one. But from the president right on down, we're talking all about how this is going to save starving and families that are at the poverty level. Here's another bit of rhetoric. This came out on his press release saying, this is Angel still, well, this will have a real impact on thousands of Rhode Island families like the one I grew up in. Setting the children in these families up for success means meeting all of their basic needs, and this raise will assure the families can once again do that. You know what? I don't care if you make the minimum wage $15 an hour, Angel, at all, meaning all the candidates, all the way up to the President of the United States. The minimum wage, as it is today, not generations ago, but as it is today, cannot nearly get close to raising a family properly. And could we please stop the rhetoric on that? Please. We can have good arguments on the economics of minimum wage and corporate welfare and all that kind of stuff, and I'm up for that. But we can't have an intellectually honest conversation as long as we're talking about saving families. Can anybody run for office and say, by the way, you shouldn't be making babies if you're making around the minimum wage because you can't afford to bring them up well? Can anybody say that and win an office? Maybe not. Maybe not in the Democratic Party in this state, I guess. But as soon as he came out, I was projecting, well, there'll be a race to, I got the better minimum wage idea. And lo and behold, the press releases start to come out. Gina Raimondo, she says, as was said in her kickoff speech last week, her spokesperson says, Gina strongly believes that we need to increase the minimum wage, but we can't wait. Look at this. We should take action now and raise the minimum wage to $10.10 by next year, and then index it to the cost of living so that politicians can't play games with people's lives. So here Angel, this is hilarious, Angel thought he was winning the day by saying, let's get it by 2018, and Gina comes in and says, no, let's do it now. Oh, and then Ken Block, he sends a press release on the Republican side saying bad idea. So the minimum wage is going to be this big conversation. But this, you shouldn't be surprised, by the way, by Gina Raimondo's actions, because it's just an indicator of what we've got coming up here. Next item. It is that she's, courting progressive Democrats. I think, what was my line that I had there? I'm the real progressive. I'm the real progressive. This is a race like crazy to the left. I've never seen something so dramatic in a Democratic gubernatorial environment. Here's a YouTube video that she's got out now. This is Senator Nesselbush talking about her progressive instincts.
Well, I love that Gina is a progressive Democrat and that she cares about women's reproductive health, that she will stand up for a woman's right to choose. She was right there for us all along the way on marriage equality. What I love about Gina and what I think makes her so great is that she is a progressive Democrat, and she's so smart that we get all of that bundled in one single woman, and that's going to be a great governor.
Oh, the progressive Democrat. She's trying to shake off the tough fiscal conservative of pension to survive in a Democratic primary world. Then we add Clay Pell in, who's going to announce for governor next week, and we will have 3 candidates who will just fight each other to open up the candy store. Now look, I respect I don't know Clay Pell, but I know Angel Tavares, and he's done some good fiscal discipline work in the Providence city government thing. And Gina Raimondo, was a tough cookie when it came to pensions. But running for governor changes the whole thing. It is going to be nothing but giveaways. Hold on to your wallet in this Democratic primary. Whether they swing back to the middle is anybody's guess, whoever wins. Let's go to the next headline. Rains, it pours in Cranston. Yeah, Mayor Alan Fung has got problems. Police officer sues city and colleagues. Now, surprisingly, you may think, uh-oh, Dan's going to load up on Alan Fung again because he's been tough on him over the course of the last few weeks. No, I don't think I'm going to. I think these kinds of things, this is a lawsuit from the highest-ranking female police officer. We have B-roll, as we say in the business, of the Lieutenant Giebold. She is, I guess this is when she was getting promoted, but now she's suing for sexual harassment and a whole bunch of things. And there's another female litigator who's a sergeant, Sergeant Rivera. And you also have the Captain Padalano story that is causing, Alan Fung to be all upset. That little part of the B-roll there, the video, was that press conference he had a couple of weeks ago trying to bring some kind of stability to his police department. Alan has been an indecisive leader, no doubt, in Cranston. But I don't blame him for these kinds of things that are happening inside the police department. That might be an indication. That story today in the paper and this harassment stuff, it might be an indication as to why Mayor Fung removed Chief Palumbo and put him on administrative paid leave, or paid administrative leave. I don't know that he's involved in the harassment part, but that, like, the wheels are coming off the Cranston Police Department in a couple of different directions. Here's what Fung's problem is. He hasn't been able to articulate why Palumbo is on the lam, and he should. If it's got to do with things other than the parking ticket blitz, which is the central controversy in Cranston right now, he should say it. I don't blame him for problems inside the police department like this, but I blame him for not delineating where the accountability is and where the accountability is going. Does that make any sense to you? And the last thing that I've got here is this overused phrase. Here's the headline. Charting a way forward, the Providence Foundation, the Providence Foundation, right? Am I having a brain spasm here? What is the Rhode Island Foundation? I knew it was somewhere. The Rhode Island, this cold is getting to me. The Rhode Island Foundation is now in its series of economic conversations, and good for them. Good for them. Neil Steinberg, who runs the foundation, just did an interview on Executive Suite with Ted Nesi. We get a preview of what he's looking at here.
We got together groups, again, across industries, people who have been around for a long time, people who are new to the state, the academic community, the nonprofit community, all together, very positive. How can we do more? How can we get people back to work? How can we grow our businesses? What ideas could come out of this that could start now? That we don't have to wait for a plan, although it'll be part of a plan, that we can help. And the we is a global we. It's the Rhode Island Foundation, it's the business community, it's the public sector, that we can get going and jumpstart and enable and inspire and push people to do.
All right, perfect. All right, terrific. Well, listen, this notion of going forward, which is everybody's thing, Clay Pell mentioned it in an interview on Channel 10 13 times in 21 minutes. We got to move the state forward. We got to go forward. We got to go forward. Enough of this going forward. No more going forward. Set a goal and a benchmark and achieve it. No more of this ambiguous going forward nonsense. It's all vacuous, empty conversation. Sounds good, does nothing. That's that. When we come back, the Ed Commissioner. She's doing a lot. Stay with us. So I caught this in the news this week. This headline kind of puzzled me. And Providence concerns over test waiver. And in that story, I learned that there are additional opportunities for the graduate kids who are having trouble with the kneecap test to actually bypass passing or showing the proficiency necessary on the kneecap. And the boss of education is Dr. Deborah Gist, always available when we ask. Nice to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Happy New Year and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
We have covered in the past, and I don't want to go back over old material, that there are plenty of opportunities other than the passing of this kneecap test for kids to be able to get that oh so important diploma that everyone is so worried about, correct?
That's absolutely right.
All right, so there's, and give me 30 seconds before we get to the collegiate thing that's gotten in the news. The stuff we've talked about in the past is an R, what, for
Yep.
waivers?
Well, so really quickly, the graduation system has three components:
Right.
the state assessment, the coursework, and the performance-based. But in the state assessment portion, there are multiple opportunities for students. So we have our state assessment called the kneecap, and they have 3 chances to take that. And then there's a whole list of 10 other assessments that include things like the Accuplacer, which is a test they use at the community college and many other schools for placement. There's a test called the ASVAB that you take if you're joining the military. There are lots of different assessments that students have access to and are using, and they can submit those instead of the kneecap. But then for any student for whom the graduation requirements related to a test are not appropriate for them, there's a waiver process. And that's been in place for the entire time we've had this. And it means that no student in Rhode Island will be prevented from graduating simply because of a test score.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't think that's resonated yet. What is the current status, by the way, of where those 4,000 kids who were in jeopardy because they weren't at least partially proficient on the kneecap? Where are they in the span of the globe right now?
They retook the state assessment for the second time in the fall, and those results will be released publicly next week.
Wow.
So families will begin to be hearing information from
Is
their
that
school.
before your State of the Education address? Or
It's the morning after.
Well, maybe you should push back the address until
Well,
you find out what the
so I'm
results
going to be
are.
giving a few highlights, but in terms of the detailed press conference, and then we're having a meeting with the board that afternoon.
Okay, so anyway, this story added in a couple other options for waivers, it seems to me, and that is that any 2 or 4 year college that has already accepted a student who may not yet have passed the kneecap will have the kneecap requirement waived. Do I get that? Is that correct?
Well, people understood this as some sort of change in the policy, and that wasn't the case.
Well, it seems like it's an add-on.
It was a recommendation to the district. So the waiver part of this whole process is completely up to the school districts. It is a local decision. So we've given them guidance. They have to be consistent with the regulation. But how they decide when they sit down with you and they're looking through to see what is the other evidence of your readiness to leave high school with your diploma, there are lots of different things that they might be able to consider. Course, evidence from your classes, projects that you've done. There are many other things that you can use. And so when we're very closely aligned with higher education now because of the new board, and so we recommended that they consider using the post-secondary acceptance, because if you think about it, if you are applying to a selective school, what are you giving them? You're giving them your transcripts,
Right.
You're giving them your records,
Your
you're
essay.
giving them your essay.
I've been through
and
this.
so imagine a committee for a waiver. What are they going to be reviewing? Similar materials.
Well, it makes sense. I mean,
So
if
it
the college
seemed
says
like-
yes, it seems like...
For now.
For
For now. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Meaning that what we want to get to at some point in our state is to feel
Mandatory.
more confident. Well, there will always be some sort of a
Right.
waiver process,
Okay.
but what we know right now is that we have students from all our highest achieving students, our valedictorians, all the way to students who may still be struggling, who are going to choose to go on to higher education, and many of them will be extremely successful there, but not all of them are ready right now. And we can't guarantee that in this new system they will be ready, but they're going to be more prepared than they have been in the past.
The trick here is that CCRI is not included in this consideration, reportedly, according to the story, because it's an open enrollment college, even though it stipulates for certain programs that you have to have a GED or a high school diploma. So clear that up for me.
So the recommendation that we made was to consider to students who'd been accepted to a selective accredited institution. The reason that open enrollment schools weren't part of that part, because there's not a process where they sit and review that application. But here's the most important point. Just because a student has decided they want to go to CCRI, which is an excellent choice for so many students, or a student who has decided that college of any kind for them right now is not what they want to do, they will still have the same access to a waiver as every other student. It just means that the committee at their school will be reviewing other evidence of their readiness. So it doesn't prevent them from receiving a waiver. Absolutely does not prevent them from receiving a waiver.
When we come back, I'm not going to get an answer, but I'm going to try. A projection on how many of these 4,000 are out of the woods, and an overall 2014 review of what the situation looks like. In education, I mean. Stay with us. Welcome back with the Ed Commissioner, Dr. Deborah Gist. I just want to clarify, for the most part, you are talking. We're talking about kids that need waivers to get their diplomas and all this kneecap testing controversy. You've always said this, but I'm not so sure it's been clear. The local districts are in charge here, correct?
That's correct.
You're not going to overrule Mary Smith's decision made by the local school district to give her a diploma, right?
That's correct. Although a student does have the ability to appeal a decision.
Appeal to the state, but you're not going to look down and say, oh, wait a second. You weren't tough enough on those particular kids. It's still a local discretionary move.
Yeah. What the regulations say is that we'll be reviewing the waivers. What we want to do is track. We want to keep track of. We want to know what evidence people are using, but overrule, no.
All right. So 4,000 kids, ballpark, were in jeopardy because they weren't partially proficient, at least on the first test. When this all rolls out, how many high school seniors do you think will be diploma-less come June?
I don't know the answer to that. I know that in Massachusetts they were down to a few hundred, and that's obviously a much bigger state. So I think it will be a very small number of students. And I think what's really important to understand is that getting to the end of this year and not being ready doesn't mean that a student won't graduate. There are many districts in our state, or there are districts in our state, who have graduations for students who need to graduate in August. They have alternative programs for students to continue earning their credits.
But the heat's on for the kids who want to go to college. The heat's on for those kids, right? So it's going to be an interesting, all those test results come back in a week or so. It's going to be an interesting situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll say that just what we know from the data are that students who fit into this category of applying to selective institutions make up a very small portion of the number of students that we're talking about. At least that's been historically the case.
Okay, so you make a big speech next week. Anything new, exciting? What's your vision going to be? Give me a preview.
Well, the vision that we have remains the same, and I know that's not as exciting as you might want to hear.
We'll see y'all tomorrow. That'll be it.
But it's so important. We put a plan in place, a 5-year plan into place, and it is absolutely critical that we keep working on that plan, staying focused, and continuing to implement everything that we said we were going to accomplish. So the work that we're doing right now continues with the implementation of new curriculum that the districts have been developing, and we've been funding for them, transitioning to the Common Core state standards.
Which happens in a year?
Well, the transition in terms of what's happening in classes has been happening. I mean, we've been working on the training for 4 years.
Give me a short thought on this Board of Education stuff. We had one, then the legislature split it by some kind of political Tourette's move, and now it's been fixed again. You like the new formula?
Well, right now, what the board has proposed,
yeah.
and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's a great way to stay focused on the areas and concentrate on areas, but at the same time, keep that interaction, that conversation going across the two
So you
groups.
understand, what happened is that the board there was a board of education for K-12, then there was a higher board, then it got merged for a ridiculous reason, politics, I think, behind the scenes. But now you've got two subcommittees, and you will have a peer commissioning the higher ed, again, a new one to come, and you think it's okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's the recommendation the board has made, and we were, I was an active part of that along with many others, and I think it's a sound recommendation.
All right, we'll watch for those scores next week and your address, and always have you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Deborah Gist, our Ed Commissioner. You will be part of the show next. Stay with us. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of test results come in on the NECAP second try by those 4,000 kids next week, but it doesn't matter that much because there's waivers all the way, and then third test and waivers all the way to June. Hey, your state of mind. Let us know what you're thinking about whatever we discuss here. 228-1886. Leave a voicemail, state of mind at myritv.com, and Dan Yorke Show, YORKE, on Facebook and on Twitter. Here's a Facebook post, I believe. Yes. John Chafee was awesome, but Link is not. Claiborne Pell was awesome. Will we make the same mistake and vote for Clay because of his father? Asks Marie. Well, first of all, it's his grandfather. This is the grandson. He announces next week, and so far, Dan Yorke's state of mind, not that impressed, but you know what? There's plenty of time to impress. So we'll see. Maybe he'll take an invitation to come here and we'll chat with him, but he'll be one of three candidates racing to the left. That's a guarantee in that Democratic gubernatorial primary. We'll see you tomorrow, 7:30 on a Friday night on Dan Yorke's State of Mind. Thanks for watching. Good night.